Over to you, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sherry. And thank you everybody for joining today. It looks like there's a lot of people on the call. I might just give it another moment because there's I see the numbers still climbing.
Yeah.
So I will I'll just bring my slides up. Okay, Sherry, could you just confirm you can see the
yes,
the campus
yes,
screen? Lovely. Thank you.
yes.
Okay, well, we'll make a start because we've got a lot of people in already. So I'll make a start with what we have. If anybody joins later, then they can always drop in questions. So thank you everybody for joining. My name is Andy from Bournemouth University's international team, and I work very closely with ApplyBoard as their representative liaison here at Bournemouth University. So it's great to meet with you all today and to give you a bit more information about Bournemouth University itself. I don't know how familiar any of you might be already with Bournemouth University. We're obviously not one of the big names necessarily in UK higher education, but hopefully by the end of this session, I will have demonstrated to you why we should be a serious choice for your students. In the image here, you can see our Talbot campus. This is our main campus, although we're not really supposed to call it that, but it's actually where about 90% of our students are taught, so it is effectively our main campus. We have two campuses. The other site is the Lansdowne campus, which is down in the town centre, very close to the seafront, as Bournemouth is a beach resort. But that's where we have most of our accommodation and most of our professional services, the likes of the marketing department, which I sit in, along with HR, finance, and IT and people like that. So it's the professional services and support services and accommodation largely based down there. But we do teach down at that campus as well in our Faculty of Health and Social Sciences and our postgraduate business school. But the majority of our students are here on the campus in the image, which is the Talbot campus. And as you can see, it's a very modern campus. We're a very modern university. We've been a university for 31 years this year, although the roots go back a lot further than that. This is our 31st year as university status. And so we're a very modern institution compared to a lot of those others in the UK. For those who don't know Bournemouth too well, is a beach resort down on the south coast, right in the middle of the south coast of England. A couple of hours from London, about half an hour away from Southampton, and is one of the best locations in the UK in terms of weather and in terms of, although it is raining today, but you know, it's March. And it's England, but we do actually have more sunshine hours than any other part of the UK. So it's actually the UK's #1 beach resort. It's a 12-kilometre sandy beach all the way along the front of the town, running right along the edge of Poole Bay. It's a place which a lot of visitors will come to during the tourist season, but for the rest of the year, it's actually a very busy place in lots of other ways. For example, education is a huge part of the local economy. There are 3 university institutions in Bournemouth, Bournemouth University being the big one, but you might already be familiar with the Arts University Bournemouth and the AECC University College, which is a chiropractic specialist college, a university college, so they have achieved university status themselves just recently. Along with that, a number of pathway provider colleges, international colleges, language schools of various kinds, so and a very large further education college. So students actually make up a huge part of the local population. It makes it very student friendly, as with students in a busy year, students making up about a quarter of the local population. So it is a very substantial part of what makes Bournemouth what it is. But it's not just about education. There are big employment areas in finance. It's actually one of the biggest areas for employment in the finance industry outside of London and Edinburgh, as far as the UK is concerned. It's usually the 3rd largest centre for employment in finance in the UK. With a lot of major financial institutions in town, like JP Morgan, Barclays Global, Lloyds Banking Group, Nationwide Building Society, Vitality Insurance. There's some very big financial institutions in town. But also the digital economy is very large here in Bournemouth. It's the fastest growing area of our economy and the fastest growing digital economy in the UK. Lots of very good tech infrastructure here in Bournemouth. The first place to get fibre optic network coverage, the first place to get 3G, then 4G. I think we were the third place in the UK to get 5G. So the tech infrastructure, the tech support here in Bournemouth is great. Lots of tech companies setting up in Bournemouth because of that, and because of support from the university. So it's a very interesting, colourful, diverse place with a lot going on, but plenty to do for students, and a really good place for students to live. A little zoom in on the south coast here. We're right in the middle of the south coast of England. So this is Poole Bay, and Bournemouth sits in between the towns of Poole and Christchurch. So Poole and Christchurch are much older towns. Both of those are thousands of years old, whereas Bournemouth is only 250 years old, so it's not very old by English standards. But the beach runs all the way along from Hengistbury Head here down to Sandbanks Peninsula at the edge of Poole Harbour. But Poole, Bournemouth and Christchurch actually operate as one place these days. And so the total combined population of the area is about 350,000 or so. So it's a fairly substantial area on the south coast. The nearest big city is Southampton, just up the road, about half an hour away. A few local views. This does look a bit like a tourist brochure at this point, but they're very nice pictures of the local area. So here we're looking out from the lower gardens, just at the seafront, looking out across the bay towards the Foreland. Bournemouth is very well known for its air festival. It's actually the largest air festival in Europe, the largest free public air festival in Europe, certainly. And it takes place over 3 days at the end of the summer. Performing aircraft of all kinds, historic aircraft and stunt aircraft, skydivers, wing walkers. You also get the Royal Navy, the Royal Marines, and all sorts of other people involved. So it's a really busy few days with an awful lot going on. And it's just one of the events that run throughout the year, bringing people to Bournemouth to enjoy everything that goes on here. Some of you may have heard of Bournemouth through the football. AFC Bournemouth joined the Premier League whenever it was, originally about 12, 13 years ago, I think. And they're doing quite well for themselves this season. So we're actually a higher education partner of AFC Bournemouth, and we have been their higher education partner for about 15 years, which is why we've got our logo scrolling around in the background there. So those who know your football will know this is a fairly old photo, because that's Ryan Fraser. So this photo goes back a few years, but it's a good one because it has our logo in it. So we get to take over the ground once a year for the BU Big Match. So we can choose one of their matches, usually one of their Premiership matches. Get lots of our students in, get lots of our branding in, and Bournemouth University sort of takes over the stadium, and we get lots of our people in to enjoy the match and just to celebrate the partnership with AFC Bournemouth. But football is an international language all of its own, really. So it's helped to spread the word about Bournemouth a great deal. That's just one of the places you can go to, the Bournemouth Oceanarium down at the seafront. But this is what most people know Bournemouth for. Initially, certainly within the UK, this is what they think of Bournemouth being, a beach resort, though the beach isn't usually that quiet. I think that was quite early in the morning. A little about the university itself. We're a fairly large university. We're about 18,000 students, just short of 18,000 students this year, which makes us larger than most, smaller than some. But the biggest universities in the UK, as you probably know, are about 50,000 or more. So we're nowhere near that size. But we quite like being the size we are. It's big enough to attract government attention, research contracts, business contracts, the kind of things that universities need to sort of boost their income, but small enough to still be personal to our students, to get to know all of our students. All of our teaching staff will know their students well, and so everybody's on first name terms when they come here. So it's not a case of everybody having to just be a face in a room. You're very much an individual as a student at Bournemouth University. Here are some of our world rankings. The Times Higher Education World University Rankings have us in the top 300 right now, and in the top 50 of the young universities. That's the universities under 50 years old. And of those, actually, Bournemouth is the #1 in the UK. And so it's a great testament to how Bournemouth is performing in terms of its global recognition. And we've worked very hard to build that reputation and that recognition over the last few years. Those of you familiar with QS Stars rating system, they rate us as a 5-star university. So there's a lot of good quality to be found here at Bournemouth. We are a university of 4 faculties. The business school is where a lot of our international students sit, as you might imagine, particularly in recent times, large numbers coming in there from India and Nigeria. Perhaps some of your students have joined us if you're on the call today. But all 4 of these faculties have undergraduate and postgraduate and research level programs in basically all of their subject areas. So business school, I'm not going to go through all of these subjects, don't worry. But business school incorporates not just business, but also our tourism department. So there you find tourism, hospitality, sports, events, and leisure as well. Faculty of Health and Social Science, a bit more specialised, not so many international students there, although quite a lot from West Africa particularly, coming in particularly for courses in things like public health, nursing, and increasingly for nutrition as well. Faculty of Media and Communication, arguably our flagship faculty. It's perhaps our best known, very well reputed department, lots of professional accreditation and recognition in creative media, media communications as well. And we're the only Centre for Excellence in Media Practice in the UK. And finally, but by no means least, the Faculty of Science and Technology, a very, very broad department. And again, lots of international students in there. 3 departments really: Earth and Life Sciences, where you have our Arch and Anth, Archaeology, Anthropology, Environmental and Forensic Science. Software Systems, as it's usually called, which is computing and IT, but also working very closely alongside design and engineering. And then Psychology and Medical Science, working in cooperation with the Health and Social Science faculty. So as you can see from that, we're not a very traditional university. You're not going to find the PPEs, philosophy, politics, economics, the classics, or anything like that. That's not the sort of university we are. Very much a modern university geared towards employability in modern industry. So even anything that looks fairly traditional on that subject list, things like English, history, law, politics, actually have a very contemporary flavour to them. Campus-wise, as I said earlier, a very modern campus. We opened on this particular campus site in 1974 and have been expanding on there ever since, really. The image in the background here is our Student Union building, which was a dedicated building we opened 8 years ago, specifically for Student Union, at the cost of £10.5 million. So it was a big investment in our Student Union, but they are a fantastic support for our students. That's the same image I've got in my background here. That's a shot of our Fusion building, which is one of our main teaching buildings on campus. And as you can tell from both of these images, really, although this is a sunset image, you can obviously see there's a lot of glass involved in these buildings. And that's not just for stylistic purposes. That is to create as much natural light in our teaching spaces and our student workspaces as we possibly can. Partially for environmental reasons. We are a very environmentally focused eco-campus. So we try to minimize use of electricity on campus and electric lighting on campus as much as we can by having plenty of natural light. But that also creates cleaner, better workspaces. So lots of room for air to circulate in there, lots of natural light. So it makes very good, clean workspace for students. That's our newest building on the Talbot campus, the Gateway building, the Pool Gateway, which is our media production building. And in there you find film studios, TV studios, green screen, motion capture, animation labs, music labs, game studios. Very, very creative building. That's our largest lecture theatre. Seats just over 300, and you will have seen much bigger lecture theatres in other universities, but we try to keep all of our teaching into small groups as much as possible. And we don't like to have big lectures. We like our students to have dialogue with their staff. We like them to be able to actually ask questions, have conversations, discuss topics, even in a lecture setting where there's capacity for it. And so being a face, one of 600 people in a room means that you're never really going to get your question in. And so 300 is as big as we like to go for our lecture theatres, because that just allows everybody to have a reasonable chance of asking their questions. And actually, most of our lecture theatres are much smaller. They would only seat about 100. That's the outside of the Student Union building again. So again, just to show that it's there's a lot of natural light, although it doesn't show it very well because they've got all the lights on inside the building at this point. But during the day, during the brighter times of year especially, then most of those electric lights are off, and there's plenty of natural light in the buildings. Down at our Lansdowne campus, we have the Bournemouth Gateway building. That's our new dedicated building for the Health and Social Science faculty. And they opened up in there just after the UK came out of lockdown, actually, just in early 2021. And so it's a dedicated purpose-built building for that faculty with all of their facilities in it, lots of practice wards, operating theatres, a simulated paramedic ambulance, and also a medical imaging centre with our own MRI scanner, X-ray facilities. And so we do a lot of research into uses of medical imaging, new ways of medical imaging, and it's one of our most important areas of research right now. So that's a brand new dedicated building for that particular faculty. The rest of the buildings at Lansdowne, as I mentioned, are either office buildings for professional services or typically halls of residence, which I'll come to later. A quick look at some of the facilities. This is one of our animation labs. Bournemouth University is very well known for its animation degrees. We are the original animation school of the UK. The National Centre for Computer Animation, which sits in our media faculty, was the first animation school in the UK and is still very much cutting edge in terms of what it offers for students and liaison with industry. So this is one of our animation labs. Every student in there has their own workstation with all the latest industry standard software and hardware. TV studio control gallery there, and this is the TV studio itself. We have a film sound stage as well, which is very similar, but just a little bit larger and with a black floor, but nobody can tell me why. It has a different color floor. I think it was just a style choice. So the studios have green screen capacity as well, but we do have a fixed green screen studio in the Gateway building too. And the soundstage and the green screen studio here, the fixed green screen, have their own motion capture facilities as well. But it's not all about the media facilities, plenty of other resources on campus. This, for example, is one of our new medical labs, which was opened actually during lockdown. They were completed during lockdown. And so when the university campus reopened after lockdown in 21, then the medical labs came into use. So there are lots of other facilities around the campus too, but these are just a glimpse of a few of them. A few essential entry requirements here, nothing that will be very surprising. So for most countries, we're expecting undergraduate entry via foundation, but for some countries, we can accept high school qualifications if they're equivalent to the UK A-level. Postgraduate, typically bachelor's degrees from most countries. There are some countries where they might have to do a pre-master first. And in both cases, IELTS 6 is our typical English language requirement, although some courses may require a little higher if they're in the sciences or something like journalism. We accept a lot of different language qualifications, so check out, I'll send this the link round for this presentation at the end of the session, and you can follow that link to a page which lists all of our different English language qualifications which are accepted for entry, some of which are country specific, some of which are sort of international qualifications. Those who do need a little bit of uplift before they enter the university, whether that's an academic pathway or just some English language, our first point of reference is the BU International College, which is our own international college run by Kaplan, based on our Lansdowne campus. And they offer all of our pathway programs for foundation, for international year 1, as well, which gives us direct entry into the second year of undergraduate, and for pre-masters, which assists students into master's level study. But they also offer our pre-sessional English. So if students do need to raise their English language level, then the pre-sessional English is the one we recommend first. None of these are exclusive. Obviously, we do accept programs from other providers as well, but they are obviously our on-campus partner and our first reference for any additional pathway or additional language needs before entering university. Quick note here of fees and scholarships. We're pretty competitive as far as the UK is concerned. Our fees tend to be pretty much in line with most universities around the country, but bundled with a cost of living which is lower than many other parts of the UK. So undergraduate fees are typically 17,800, with a few, like medical science, sitting in the higher bracket, 18,800. Postgraduate, much more of a range, starting at 16,000 and going up to 18,250. With the MBA at 18,000. We only have one program at 18,250. I think that's the medical imaging. But there's quite a broad range of fees in between. And for most courses, you'll find it's around about 17,000. We do ask a £5,000 deposit ahead of, well, in order to confirm the place, and that's obviously ahead of entry, and an instalment scheme for students to settle up the rest of the fee once they have enrolled. We offer placements, which I'll touch on in a moment, on both bachelor's and master's degrees. And the placement fee, although it's an additional year on the programme, there's only a placement fee of 1,850. There's no additional tuition fee for a placement year. And then research, £19,000 per year for library-based, £21,000 a year for lab-based research programs. So that's MPhils, PhDs, and the MRes. Scholarships, the academic scholarship is particularly offered at postgraduate level, and that's a £3,750 discount automatically awarded on the basis of academic merit. So that will be issued to any student eligible for it as part of the admissions process. Undergraduate level currently is just sport and music scholarships, but they can be up to £5,000 in themselves. We do plug into some external schemes. The FCO Tuning Scholarship, I'm sure you're familiar with, and no doubt many of you are familiar with the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship as well. We also very often have scholarships through schemes like the British Council Great Scholarships. So your students can always look out for external funding as well. I'm going to touch quickly on employability because that's a big part of what makes us tick at Bournemouth University. Employability is built into all of our programs, really, and so those kind of workplace skills are what all of our courses are designed for. But a big part of making that really come to life is the placement opportunity. And as I mentioned, we have placements on undergraduate and postgraduate courses. Actually, all of our bachelor's degrees have placement opportunity, and the majority of our master's degrees as well these days. Usually optional. In the case of a few of the undergraduate courses, it can be compulsory, but for most courses it's optional but strongly recommended. Partners all over the place. The BBC here, Hong Kong Tourism Board is a good example of one of our international ones. This is Virgin Music as well, one of our business school partnerships. There are lots and lots of placement opportunities out there, about 1,500 placement providers on the list, but I'm not going to give you a big list of all of them today. But it's something that we focus on very much at Bournemouth University, and it makes Bournemouth University quite distinctive because we have more placement students than almost any other university in the UK. We're usually either number one or number two. It's usually ourselves and Queen's University Belfast rivaling each other for the top spot. I'm not sure where we stand right now, but we're very likely either first or second in terms of our placement numbers, because actually approaching half of our students, it's over 40% now of our undergraduate students especially, are taking placements as part of their courses. Even if it's optional, it's always something we strongly recommend, and it's a huge advantage for students, and it's way above the sector average. Even if students don't take a placement year, we advise them to take, undergraduate especially, to take short summer placements after their first and second years. So in the summer vacation after their first and second year, so they can get some industry experience, and we can help them arrange those. So actually about 90% of our graduates will leave with some industry experience, but a lot of those students will be having completed a full placement year. Lots of really good reasons for doing it. A few of them are outlined here. It's obviously a boost to employability, which is important to us because that's what we focus on as a university. But Higher education is a big investment. Students, will spend a lot of their money or their family's money on getting these degrees, and so getting into successful careers and starting to earn those salaries to make it all worthwhile, if you like, to pay it all back, then it obviously is important to a lot of our graduates. So that boost of employability is important. And a lot of those big employers, those blue chip companies especially, won't even interview graduates unless they've got a year of experience already. So that placement really ticks a big box. But it's an opportunity to see the world. It's an opportunity to try new things, even start their own businesses. And to come back from those placements with a very much more professional perspective on their studies, particularly at undergraduate level. For the first couple of years of university, students are, they're still learning, they're still growing up. There's a lot of maturing takes place during their degree, but especially once they've done that placement year, they come back to us with a whole different professional outlook on their studies, and it can really help them with their final year grades. As I said, no tuition fee to pay, just a £1,850 placement fee, but actually students will typically be paid for placements. So most placements are salaried. It's a full-time job that students will do for a minimum of 30 weeks, in many cases still 40 weeks, and they will typically be earning pretty good money. We need to be sure that they're going to be earning enough to live comfortably in the place where they are based in order to let them do those placements, unless they're being provided for in some other way, maybe by family money, maybe they're happy to do a voluntary placement if they've already got enough savings or they've got family money behind them. Or in some cases, they might be doing a placement with a charitable organisation who will provide accommodation and provide food. Environmental charities, animal charities, for example. A lot of our students will do that kind of a placement, actually give their time for free, but everything, all the basics anyway, are provided for them. It's still a fantastic experience. So some placements are unpaid, some are expenses only, particularly if they're the short summer placements. But most of the placements are subject to a salary. Now, it's something we've been doing for a long time. Since before we were even a university, we started offering placements on our courses about 45 years ago when we were a higher education institute. And so we were one of the first institutions in the UK to use that model. And so we have about 100,000, over 100,000 placement cases going back over those years. Many of which you'll find featured on the website. So it's worth taking a look at the website for examples of some of the companies we work with, some of the roles that our students can do for those placements, and what they get out of them as well, both what the students get out of them and what the employers get out of them too. And so it's very much a two-way relationship between ourselves and the industry partners that we work with. Quickly, for those who have students interested in business, our business school is AACSB accredited. That's the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business, and it's a difficult accreditation to achieve. It was an 8-year process to achieve it, and we were awarded that in 2018. And it now sits on all the courses in the business school, whether that's business, finance, economics, tourism, hospitality, anything like that. If it's in the business school, it will carry AACSB accreditation. And that's a very standout business accreditation. Only just over 5% of the business schools in the world have achieved it. And we were one of the first modern universities in the UK to achieve it. I think we were the 6th of the modern universities in the UK to achieve AACSB. And obviously it sits on the qualifications themselves, not just on the business school. So graduates will take that accreditation with them, typically along with a host of others. We're a heavily professionally accredited university. So down here at the bottom, you'll find various other professional recognitions from around the UK, especially the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, Chartered Institute of Marketing, Chartered Management Institute, etc. And business graduates especially will take away not just AACSB, but a combination of UK professional accreditations as well, which really make their qualifications stand out in the graduate marketplace. Quickly on student life, lots going on outside of the studies, and we always recommend to students that they get involved in lots of other things outside of their studies. University life in the UK isn't just about study. One of the great things about UK universities is they offer so many other opportunities as well. And Bournemouth is by no means any exception to that. So students want to get involved in music, for example. We have a very large orchestra, a symphony orchestra, which travels around the country performing. We also have various choirs, student bands, a jazz band, a big band, lots of student rock bands or solo performers as well, all of whom can be supported by the BU Music Service. Students' Union, I mentioned earlier, they provide events and activities throughout the year, over 100 clubs and societies for students to enjoy their hobbies, meet new people, do some interesting things they like, or maybe something new they want to try. Student Union do a lot more than just that, of course. They're a fantastic union that we have here, and they represent students at every level of university decision making. But what the students see typically are the events and the fun stuff that take place throughout the year. But there are lots of other opportunities alongside that through Student Union, in volunteering, in charity and fundraising, getting involved in things that are a benefit to the community or to others. It's great for personal development, but it's also great for employability, because the employers do love to see that kind of selfless engagement beyond a student's actual degree course. Sports as well. If any of your students are athletes, they want to take part in competitive sports, then there are 3 levels of sport actually at the university. Social sport, which is just for fun. Campus sports, often called intramural, where our own students play against each other. And then performance sport, which most universities call varsity, where you're competing against other universities. So all of these guys here represent the different sports which are supported by Sport BU, which is our sport and fitness department. And they oversee all of our competitive sports. And we do pretty well, currently ranked 30th out of 165 universities in the UK. And that ranking is going up. That's the Bucks Leagues, the British Universities and Colleges Sport Leagues. And many of our teams are performing at the very top level in the UK. So if any of your students are looking at taking part in sport while they're here, they've got some really good opportunities there. And again, they can get those sports scholarships too. Quickly on accommodation. Lots of halls of residence. As I mentioned, that's mostly at our Lansdowne campus in the town centre, down near the seafront. This is our biggest hall of residence in the background. This is Dorchester House, which houses about 600 students. And in that building, you'll find these. This is one of our postgraduate self-contained apartments. They're slightly bigger than the standard student room, but a standard student room is an ensuite study bedroom. So the students will have their own bathroom and a private study bedroom, but they will share kitchen and living room facilities with other students. In the postgrad self-contained ones, you get your own little kitchen tucked away behind there, your own living room area. So everything is private for those postgrad rooms. Those are £190 a week, including bills. Standard rooms start about £120 per week, again, including bills and including a university bus pass as well. All those buildings have common rooms, games rooms. Some have their own in-house gym. Others will have little mini cinemas and games rooms. And one of our buildings also has roof terraces and balconies going off the student common rooms. So students in there can get some really nice sea views as well, because that's right down by the seafront. Lots more information online, but I won't dwell on that right now. I'm actually going to leave it there. We've got plenty of time for questions before we finish. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Andy, for such a great session. We do have many good questions, actually. I think a lot of them are around language requirements and also scholarships, which you've already covered in the previous session. And we will be sharing the presentation by the end of the webinar. And there's a link to all the language requirements. And yeah, so for example, the equivalent to PTE or like other accepted language certificates. So yeah, you can go to the link and check. So I think we have other questions regarding how many intakes we have for UG and PG.
Okay, intakes, just one for undergraduate. That's September September each year. We don't have any other undergraduate intake, except for the online business degree. There's a purely online business degree, which also has a January start. But everything that's taught on campus at undergraduate level is September only. Postgraduate, we have September and January entry. So it's the two different entry points for postgrad at the moment. So anything master's level, nearly anything master's level. Not quite every program is offered in January, but the majority of them are.
Great. And what's the processing time to receive a conditional offer, turnaround time?
Turnaround time is pretty good at the moment. We normally aim for about 2 weeks. We're able to achieve quicker than that in a lot of cases, actually, but 2 weeks is our typical turnaround for a standard postgraduate application. Undergraduate, it varies a little bit more. A lot of those courses require course leader decisions or assessments of portfolios, maybe interviews. So those in those cases, they can take a bit longer. But for most master's degrees, particularly, 2 weeks is about the most you would expect.
Cool. And what's the criteria for scholarships?
Well, that varies from one country to another. If I just share my screen again for a moment, I will.
Yeah.
Just find the scholarship page for you. So on our international landing page, you'll find links to all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
International. Are you seeing this, by the way? You're not yet, are you? I haven't shared yet. There we go. That's better. So our international landing page, you'll find links to the English language stuff, but also to fees and scholarships. So for the Academic Excellence Scholarship, you'll find an equivalencies table with equivalencies listed country by country for all of our major overseas student market, Europe and beyond. So if your country isn't on there, get in touch with our admissions team and they will give you an assessment for that particular country. But most of the countries we expect to receive applications from will be there. I'm imagining a lot of you on the call will be India, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, and certainly you'll find your equivalencies on there. For Nigeria, for example, which is normally my my stamping room, we ask for 65% or 3.5 GPA from a Nigerian bachelor's degree, just as an example. For India, if imagining there's quite a few on the call, 70% from an Indian bachelor's. So that's an automatic award, as I said. That's automatically awarded to anybody with those grades already.
Awesome, that's really helpful. And do we have interview before the cast stage?
We don't interview before cast stage, no. The only programs which carry interviews are typically those in health sciences or sometimes in animation as well. So once an animation course leader has assessed the portfolio, they might ask the student for a short informal interview for that. Interviews are typical on the health science programs for nursing, midwifery, physiotherapy. That's fairly standard, and that's a requirement from the National Health Service. Another thing I'll just put up on the screen here, because there's a question in the chat about it, is our English language policy.
Yeah.
And so find down here a big list of all the different language qualifications and providers that we will accept in place of IELTS. And this applies to nearly all of our courses. A few of again, those health science courses, nursing, midwifery, etc. They have to have IELTS. That's a British requirement from the Nursing and Midwifery Council. But for everything else, we're able to accept a lot of different language qualifications. And as you can see, there's quite a big list that goes on for a while. So we're certainly not just IELTS by any means. You'll find lots and lots of alternatives on there. So that's all accessed through the BU International homepage, just bournemouth.ac.uk/international.
Awesome. And also people are asking about the entry requirement for MBA. Do we require working experience?
We do require work experience. We only ask for 2 years of work experience. That should ideally be management experience. They're fairly flexible about what what or who you should be managing. So if it's experience of managing a project or managing a budget, that is accepted as management experience. It doesn't have to be managing a department particularly, but something that's given you management experience. So yes, a good bachelor's degree. The usual, I think they asked for an IELTS 6.5, I want to say, on MBA. I'm not sure off the top of my head. They used to, they might have changed it. But yes, 2 years of, minimum 2 years of management related work experience.
Great. And what about study gap? Do we have any specific policy regarding that?
We don't. No. If a student is coming back to education after 10, 15 years in work, if anything, it makes it easier because we're able to give them additional recognition for their work experience as related to the subject as well. So no, we don't mind if there's a study gap, not at all. So obviously, awesome. Students going straight in from university, bachelor's degrees, will still be welcomed, but obviously students coming back in after 10 or 15 years of work, absolutely fine as well. A lot of our students do that. It's a good opportunity for boosting their careers, maybe changing their career direction, doing something new. So we're able to facilitate all of that. Study gaps are not an issue.
Yeah, that's awesome news. And do we have Master of Research, and what's the requirements if we do?
We do offer MRes. We hesitate to promote them because it's often not what people think it is. So students do need to have a good, ideally a master's degree already before going into MRes. It is a research level program. It's a mini PhD. And so students do need to have a good master's degree, ideally, before entering that. And quite a high level of English. We look for an IELTS 6.5 minimum for entry to MRes. And it's treated as a research program, so it doesn't have a master's tuition fee. It has a research fee. And the expectations are the same. So the students will need to submit a study proposal, a book review, and be considered in the same way as they would for a PhD. It's often used as a first step towards a PhD, but it's not a sort of alternative to master's.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. It's a great session. And unfortunately, we are running out of time. So if anyone has any questions, please reach out to your account manager at ApplyBoard. I'm sure we'll be able to help. And thank you, everyone, for attending. I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next session. Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.
Recording.